We're on page 380. We're looking at 7.1b, number 1, and there are a number of sets of directions. It says, copy and complete each function table. Now, function table is one of our words. It doesn't really make much sense until we start to do it. You are going to copy on your paper this table that starts with x's. Those are the inputs. It has the function rule, what you do, what the relationship is, and y is the output. Then we're going to identify the domain and range. Remember, the x's are the inputs, and the y is the output. And the rule that they gave us to start was y is equal to 3x. And so the rule, the function rule goes in the middle. They picked what the inputs were for us. So we're going to copy those 1, 2, 3, 4. To be honest, if you get to pick, you should always start with 0. It irritates me that sometimes this book does not start with 0. I like it for a couple of reasons. 0 is easy. It makes the math so easy. And the number 0 tells us something about the graph that's really important later on. So I get annoyed when they don't start with 0. If they don't pick it for you, you should always start at 0. Now what's going to happen is we're going to fill in this function table, which means you're just going to do the work. It says 3x. Well, when I have the coefficient 3 next to the variable x, what operation is that? Multiplying. So we're going to write 3 times, but instead of x, we know that in this row, x is 1, so we're going to put a 1. And then once you do the rule, 3 times 1 is, you're going to write down what the output is, because the rule tells you what to do, and then you do it. I'm with you so far, Mrs. Smith? So my next row, now we know that x is 2. So what am I going to write in the middle? 3 times 2, because I'm copying this rule, but instead of having the x, I'm plugging in what x is. And you're right, 3 times 2 is 6, and so I'm plugging in my output. I'm simplifying that expression. I'm with you so far, Mrs. Smith? So this 3 is going to be what? 3 times 3. This 3 is actually what the x3 is. Okay, it looks like it doesn't matter. And 3 times 3 is 9. What goes first, the 3 or the 4? 3. The 3, because the rule says so. 3 times 4 is 12. I know, magically appears. Ta-da! Jazz hands. Are we done? No, because now it says identify the domain and the range. So underneath here, you're going to write the word domain, colon, and the range, colon. And here's what happens. There are some special things called braces in math, and it looks like if you turned back to page 378, the bottom of the page, it says the domain is this and the range is this. And what it does is it lists, the domain is what? The inputs or the outputs? Domain is the inputs. The range is the outputs. This little squiggle, they're called braces. My braces are always a little bit sloppy because they're just kind of squiggles, and that's okay, but you are required to put the domain and the range in braces because that's how we show the set values of those. All the things in that collection. You are not required to put them in order. Fun fact. We usually do. Because that way you can just copy them easily and make sure you don't forget any. I would recommend it. If you have a repeat value, you only list it one time. So if my answer was 80, 80, 80, 80, I would only list that number one time. Okay, because in sets you do not have to repeat values. And so when I'm looking for my domain, I know domains are sets, and so I'm going to start with a brace, my little squiggle. Domain, inputs or outputs? Inputs. So domain is here, and it's this column right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and brace. So braces are a lot like parentheses in English in that you have to have one that starts and one that ends. You have to put commas between the values, otherwise it would look like 1,234, and we'd all be confused. And you just read this whole column. If you can remember the definition, domain and range is easy. If you don't spend time on the vocabulary tonight, I'm going to add more to it, and then it gets really hard, and math gets hard, and you'll cry, and I'm immune to whining and tears. I'm doing this gig a long time. My poor kids. Yes? Awesome. And I remember D and I come first in the alphabet. R and O come later in the alphabet. So however you want to remember, give yourself some tricks. You just need to remember what that is. Yes, sir. Yes. That's right. And so when I'm listing the range, I start with the brace, the squiggle. And what am I going to list? 3, 6, 9, 12, and a brace. That's how you do it. I got it, Mrs. Smith. I'm good. You could fill in a function table and list the domain and range.